因为今天早上呢，就是有家长说，咱们现在是多伦多的时间早上，所以有家长说正在送孩子上学的路上，或者有怎么样的原因，希望能够看回放，所以我现在呢把它放在回放的这个位置上。可能以后我们要是多伦多的家长多的时候，我们会把这个讲座放在晚上会比较好。不过不管怎样，我们废话少说，感谢大家及时准时的，就是参加我们的讲座。我们今天呢是请到这个我们的嘉宾就是 Angelina 郑子优美女，她呢非常强的这个个人的这个能力，然后也有非常好的这个个人取得的成绩，非常闪亮。我现在呢不会多说这些，我们等一下呢会请郑学姐给大家先自我介绍，然后我先把这个程序呢简单的给大家说一下。我是仙妈老师，大家可能都熟悉了，参加过讲座的都知道，我是这个加高在线的创始人，加高在线高中Ontario Virtual School 的大中华区的总监。我每年呢都服务几千名学生和家长吧，这个一点不夸张，每天3、5个是至少，10来个是平常，所以一年呢3、2千人是正常的。大家有什么问题呢，也欢迎就是私信我，在咱们加高在线的群里提出也可以。有私信我呢，我可能会拉一个小群，把我的这个我们的客服老师加进来，所以请大家原谅，因为我确实不能顾及到这个1对1的每个人的这样的一个服务。好，我也先不说我自己，这是今天我们的一个这个讲座的日程。那我们呢基本上就是我刚才的这个简单的欢迎词。然后呢，我们先请这个这个学姐就是 Angelina 给我们先介绍 IEO 这部分，就是经济学奥赛这一部分。然后呢，因为今天我们这个介绍 IEO 和 FBLA 都是给我们的加高在线队招募进行预热，所以呢，有很多家长会非常的关心我们招这个团队的人员有哪样要求，怎么招的，我也会尽快的穿插在这2部分内容之间，给大家说一下我们都有哪些要求。这样的话呢 ，Angelina 也可以稍微休息一下。在我这个一个团队招募预热之后呢，Angelina继续来讲。
妈妈昨晚上生病了，
请大家就是 mute 自己啊，否则会在这个过程当中影响到。如果一会儿我们有这个要答疑的时候呢，最后答疑。这怎么还有声音？请大家 mute 自己啊！我现在分享屏幕的时候呢，就不会操作怎么 mute。
The greatest of all poets and musicians, the bride Eurydice, a woodman. Anyone could tell the couple was truly and deeply.
我们最后会有一个 Q&A。
Eurydice stumbled and fell to the ground.
这个时候呢，我们会有这个就是说，请大家来提问。大家如果有问题，也可以打在这个对话。我现在退出分享，然后 Angelina 你可以分享你的屏幕。我退出分享才知道怎么给其他人 mute， 我这个顾不上。好，那今天的简单的这个前面的流程介绍就在这儿。下面我把时间交给 Angelina， 谢谢。
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
All right, so as you guys all know, my name is Angelina and I'm incredibly excited to be here today. So just a quick introduction. Currently, I'm a national officer at FBLA Canada, and I'm also a 2021 Team Canada member and gold medalist in the International Economics Olympiad. These are both two of my favorite experiences during high school, so I will be sharing my understanding and experiences with these organizations with all of you today. 我也要非常感谢 Sunny 老师给我这个机会跟大家分享我在这2个机构的一些经验。So I will be first starting with the IEO. So before I get into any tips or experience with the IEO, I want to first talk about what exactly the IEO is. So IEO stands for the International Economics Olympiad, and it is the largest economics competition for high school students. And the score breakdown for the IEO is as follows. So 50% comes from the economics written exam, 25% comes from the financial literacy simulation, and then 25% comes from a team business presentation. So just in Chinese again, 国际经济学奥赛叫 IEO， 然后 IEO 是13顶国际科学类奥赛之一，是为高中生举办的1年1度的经济学比赛，是旨在鼓励对经济学、财务还有商业感兴趣的学生，是激发他们用创造性方式解决问题。IEO 也是由哈佛大学教授 Eric Maskin 担任理事会主席的，然后是比较最近是2018年才开始正式举办的。All right, so now just going on to an introduction of the Canadian Economics Olympiad. So as you guys all know, it is a relatively new competition. It was actually started in 2020. So how it works is that the top 5 scorers in the Canadian Economics Olympiad qualify for the Canadian Economics National Team. And then the team will then compete in the International Economics Olympiad. So 加拿大经济奥赛的前5名有资格进入经济的国家队。So the format of the Canadian Olympiad is slightly different from that of the international competition. So for the Canadian Olympiad, there's a multiple choice and short answer question. And these are all going to be based on Canadian undergraduate economics content. So there's no presentation, communication, or online component. It's all just a written paper exam. And you get 12 hours, which is quite a long period of time to compete in the Canadian Economics Olympiad. And just going into a little bit of my experience with the Canadian Olympiad. So I competed in the Olympiad for the first time in grade 10. And on my first year, I got 8th place in Canada. So overall, I was fairly happy with my results, but I did want to make the Canadian national team next year. So I studied a lot more rigorously in the following year, and last year I placed 2nd in Canada. I was incredibly excited to qualify for the International Olympiad, and after 2 months of training with the rest of the Team Canada members, we won a team silver medal for Canada, and I also won an individual gold medal. So from competing in the IEO these 2 years, I know that I've made a bunch of mistakes. I found things that worked well for me personally, and I did learn a wealth of insights. So that's what I'm planning on sharing with all of you today. So going into some general tips and advice. So before I get into any content-based tips, the very first thing that I want to suggest is to focus on preparing for the Canadian Economics Olympiad. 重点准备呢，应该是加拿大的经济奥赛，不是国际的奥赛。So 2 reasons why this is the case. So first of all, it's the prerequisite for the international stage, but more importantly, the content for the Canadian Olympiad is actually a lot more difficult than that in the International Olympiad. So you will be more than prepared for the international stage if you do manage to make it there. Now going into more content-based advice. So the most important thing that worked very well for me was using a long-term and structured studying resource. 就是需要用长期还有结构化的学习资源. Because when you're studying for a rigorous competition, reading one article or practicing one question once in a while is far from enough. You have to follow a structured plan where each concept or each chapter you learn builds upon and connects with the previous. So this is really helpful for developing stronger studying habits and also forming stronger memory connections. 现在呢，我会解释哪些资源呢？我个人认为是最有效的。So the first thing that I want to talk about is just AP 微观经济和宏观经济学. So AP microeconomics and macroeconomics. So personally, taking these 2 courses helped me tremendously for preparing for the Olympiad. And the reason why this is the case is because these AP economics courses, they cover the fundamental economic concepts that you will encounter in the Olympiad. So things like maybe types of market structures or supply and demand and market externalities. And another reason why I think this was a great option for me was because taking the AP exams was useful by themselves too. So it can help you get university credits for Canadian and American universities and also gain an edge in the university admissions process by showing that you are taking challenging courses. So one example is that in AP economics, something that you learn from the very first unit is that price discrimination is a phenomenon that occurs when a business charges customers different prices for the exact same product or service. Now, in the 2021 Economics Olympiad, there was this question that I had to answer. So it was, which of the following is the best example of price discrimination? I'll give you guys just a few seconds to read over all of the different answer choices. All right, now going through the answer choices based on AP Economics content, for the first choice, airlines charging extra for seat selection, this cannot be the right answer because charging extra is for a different product. Tickets with seat selection are a different product compared to tickets without seat selection. Moving on to the second answer, 15% student discount at restaurants. So we know that this is the correct answer because when you have a 15% student discount, it is charging students a different price compared to all other customers for the exact same product, which is a meal at the restaurant. So this is just one of many examples of how learning AP Economics content can help you tremendously when preparing for the International and Canadian Economics Olympiad. All right, so you can also find a lot of AP Economics resources just online or also through many different tutoring and consultation companies. And moving on to a second option that I do think also works very well for preparation, which is learning a university level economics course. So 第二个选择呢是学习大学本科的经济学科，这非常有帮助，因为加拿大奥赛是由经济学教授 Dr. Kroshelov 写的。所以呢，这个竞赛其实呢和大学的经济学期末考试非常相似的。什么 Western University 啊，或者多大，还有其他的大学都有提供免费或者比较便宜的大学课程给高中的学生。So just reiterating what I said, taking an undergraduate economics course can be extremely helpful because first, it's usually free or low cost. Second, it can give you university credit. And third, the content aligns with the contest paper. So giving you guys a little bit of background information. The Canadian Economics Olympiad paper is written by Dr. Yuri Koroshelov. So he is an economics professor at the University of Ottawa. So hint, hint, he gets a lot of his questions from undergraduate economics content. So the content of the contest doesn't differ too much from the content that you learn in university courses. So one specific program that I know worked well for a fellow Team Canada member is the Western Initiative for Scholarly Excellence. I personally didn't participate in this program, but the individual who got first place in the Canadian Economics Olympiad did, and he highly recommends the program for anyone who wants to try. So this course, it allows you to take a course at Western University free of tuition. So there is an application process for this program and it is limited to 100 students. So that's why I would only recommend this program if you are incredibly serious about economics and you really are willing to take on challenging courseware to succeed in the Olympiad. So obviously this option does come with disadvantages. For example, it may be hard to balance your day school homework and assignments with taking a university undergraduate level course. So do only consider this if you are extremely serious about the contest. And last but not least, I want to talk about the free resources that are accessible online. These provide a lot more flexibility and a lot less stress than actually taking an AP course or taking a university course. Because 不是每个人都可以参加 AP 考试或者大学的课程嘛，所以呢，我也想介绍一些对奥赛准备非常有帮助的免费的资源，这些都现在在屏幕上面。So the first resource is Khan Academy Economics. I love this resource because it has countless practice questions and step-by-step solutions. And also Sal makes videos that are intuitive and easy to understand for students. A second resource is Jacob Clifford, which is a YouTube channel. So what I like about this channel is that they have a very quick and concise review of key economic concepts. So I usually just use this YouTube channel as a review guide the day or two before the actual Olympiad. There are also multiple textbooks that you can use to understand the in-depth theory behind economics. These are going to allow you to understand the proofs behind different concepts, which is really important in short answer questions. So there are three that I would recommend. First, Principles of Economics by Gregory Mankiw. This is a classic. Second, The Economy by Core. You can find this textbook online free of charge. And then third, Principles of Microeconomics by Jonathan Gruber. So of course, you can use these resources in combination with each other. So personally, what I did was I studied based on the Principles of Economics textbook by myself. And then if there was a concept, say market externalities, that I don't understand, I would try to find additional resources on YouTube and Khan Academy. And then after I think I understand a concept thoroughly, what I would do is I would go through a lot of practice questions on Khan Academy's website to make sure that I really solidify my understanding of that concept. And then moving on, the past contest papers from 2020 and 2021 are another amazing study resource. So 2020和2021年的竞赛 paper 是另一个很好的学习资源，这些呢都在加拿大奥赛的网站上面可以找到。So because the concepts in the Olympiad getting tested don't change too much from year to year, doing the past contests will give you an idea of what you should expect for the contest this year. Fortunately, the contest papers are both freely accessible. Just go to the Canadian Economics Olympiad website and you should be able to find it. All right, so moving on. I think that using these resources should be more than enough for the economics portion. So 用这些资源呢，准备经济方面呢就已经非常足够了。但是呢，除了专门的经济学准备，数学也很重要，尤其是对于加拿大这轮的比赛。所以呢，你也必须要有扎实的数学基础，并且对于微积分也是需要有所了解的。So what you should do is brush up on your math knowledge because the Canadian Olympiad is fairly math heavy. So you should be familiar with concepts such as 1, solving systems of equations for unknown variables, 2, finding values in sequences and series, and also solving derivatives. So both just basic derivatives and also partial derivatives. I remember there was a question in both the 2020 exam and the 2021 exam that involved finding derivatives. I think that most of the students over here are not in grade 12 yet. So because you don't learn calculus until grade 12, I'd recommend younger students to simply learn a little bit about derivatives by themselves. So it's very easy to either just take a course on calculus or maybe even watch online videos because you only have to understand the derivatives portion. You don't have to understand integrals or other more complicated aspects of calculus. All right, now that we have all of the sample studying resources, I'm just going to go over a sample studying timeline. You don't have to follow this step by step, but this is just a blueprint that you can use for your individual studying plan. So in March, what I would start out with is a diagnostic test using past contest papers. This is extremely helpful for just figuring out how much do I already know and how much do I still need to study. Then for the main period from March to May, I'd recommend using the structured long-term studying resources. So either the textbooks, the Khan Academy resources, etc. You should be using these for a fixed amount of time every day or every week. So for example, just allocating 30 minutes every day towards studying should be a very simple process because this is a lot more effective than, for example, studying for many hours the day before, because that way you have lower memory retention. Then sorry, just unmute, mute yourself or whoever was unmuted. All right, thank you so much. Okay, and then moving on, in May, I would do the practice past contest paper again, because this just allows you to measure your progress and see which little tidbits you still have to study. And then finally, in June, it will be time to do the Canadian Economics Olympiad. So on the day of the Canadian Economics Olympiad, you will have 12 full hours to work on the contest paper. This is a very long amount of time. So what I would encourage you to do is take advantage of all of that time that you are given. I know that it's very tempting to, for example, go hang out with friends or go work on something else during that 12 hours. But if you do want to do well in the exam, I would recommend you to spend that 12 hours doing the Olympiad. So for example, checking over your work, doing additional research to make sure that you are able to succeed. And I wish you all the best of luck in the Canadian Economics Olympiad. All right, So 现在呢，我想谈谈国际的经济学奥赛。参加国际奥赛呢，是我在疫情期间应该是我最喜欢的经历吧。Because for the International Economics Olympiad, it was an amazing experience for me. Being able to bond with the other Team Canada members by studying together and competing together, meeting other competitors from all across the world and experiencing their unique cultures, and also attending talks by renowned economists that I've looked up to forever. Like I did think that every part of the Economics Olympiad taught me something new and taught me insightful knowledge. So I'd highly recommend trying to get to the international stage. So I'll now go over effective preparation for the 3 different components of the International Olympiad. All right, so 我想先谈谈国际奥赛的 business case component. Succeeding in the business case can really make or break your results in the Olympiad. For Team Canada last year, we won the finals of the business case, and it was hugely beneficial to our overall rankings. So personally, for me, it helped offset my kind of mediocre score in the financial literacy game component, so it was very beneficial. I think the most important thing for the business case is time management and collaboration. I will just quickly break down what the business case looks like. So each national team representing each country, you will have 24 hours to solve a business problem or present a business opportunity. So last year, what we had to do was present a new car brand for a Latvian factory to produce. And what we represented was just using an electric car vehicle model. So at the end of the 24 hours, the business team will have to submit a slide deck presenting their findings, and then they will have to give a 10-minute presentation. Okay, so more about time management and collaboration when you're working on the business case. So 时间管理还有协作呢是至关重要的。How exactly were we able to manage our time effectively? So the very first thing that we were able to do is delegate tasks for each member based on our unique strengths. So because we talked very extensively to each other, the different Team Canada members, when we were training, we understood our strengths. For example, we knew that Olivia was really good at art, and I knew that Andrew was very, very good at financial forecasts. So when we were working during the 24-hour period, we made sure to divide up our tasks according to our unique strengths. So Olivia worked exclusively on graphic design, I worked on research and ideation, Andy worked on marketing, while Eric and Andrew, they worked on financial forecasting. This just helped us speed up our process significantly. That's imperative when you only have 24 hours to solve a complicated business problem. So 今年我们的团队呢是 Olivia 专门做平面专业，我呢是负责研究，然后 Andy 和 Eric 他们是负责财务预测，这样子呢我们的效率才可以提高，才能让我们在24小时内完成我们的幻灯片。All right, so the next thing that I think you should definitely consider for the business case is to prepare templates. So what do I mean by that? You should try to look online or make templates yourself for slides, tables, and graphs before the 24-hour period begins. This is because during the 24 hours, you will be very pressed for time. So the main focus should be content, generating unique creative ideas and executing these ideas rather than simply making the slides look aesthetically pleasing. So you can either pre-make the slide templates yourself in your free time or use slide templates from SlideSkill and Canva, which both offer very aesthetically pleasing slideshow templates that will allow you to save time. Now, the final tip that I have is to simulate the real business case environment as many times as you can during practice. 就是在练习的时候呢，要尽量模仿真实的比赛环境。So for example, you can only give yourself 24 hours to solve the case and use whichever platform you will use to call for the actual competition. Now, last year, we made the mistake of practicing the business case with 1 week to prepare the slide deck. This made us feel a lot more stressed during the actual competition because we weren't used to the short time frame. So moral of the story, don't follow our example. Do try to imitate the real business environment. And finally, I do understand that the business case can feel overwhelming, especially for students that haven't really done any business case like this before. So if you're not sure where to start, you can actually watch the past business case presentations on the IEO YouTube channel. This is very helpful for getting an idea of what types of presentations judges are looking for. So I would highly recommend going to the International Economics Olympiad channel, going to the 2020 business case finals, and watching the Team Brazil presentation. Team Brazil's presentation from 2020 is a stellar example of what the business case solution should look like. So just reiterating in Mandarin, 可以在 IEO 的 YouTube channel 上面看去年和前年的 business case 演示，这些都非常有帮助。All right， 现在呢，我想谈谈奥赛的金融游戏，这个呢是占你的成绩的25%。So basically, the financial literacy game, it's an online simulation, and you play the role of a character and go through 30 years of their life. And the goal is to maximize the net worth of each character.So 你在游戏里面呢，要扮演一个角色，然后度过他的30年生活。这个游戏的目标呢是最大化这个角色的资产。So each year in the game, you will make decisions like maybe buying or selling stocks, bonds, and real estate, or applying for jobs and maybe starting a business, etc. So all of these decisions mirror the financial decisions that you would have to make in real life.So in the game, it's very important to not take on too much risk by only making investments in which you have a guaranteed return or that involve low risk. So for example, you can invest in things like bonds or maybe stocks that yield a guaranteed dividend rather than taking on a lot of debt, which can jeopardize your financial situation. However, to be honest though, this is my least favorite part of the Olympiad.Because while there is a bit of skill involved with things like, not taking on too much debt or making wise investment decisions, there's also a lot of luck involved in the game. 就是游戏里面呢也有很多运气的因素，所以呢，我建议学生们不要在这个游戏上面花太多的时间。And then finally, on the day of the financial literacy game, do make sure you have strong Wi-Fi and a fast computer. When I did the game last year, it was very, very laggy for me. So I wasn't able to finish my entire 30 years, and this dragged down my results in the financial literacy game by quite a lot. Don't follow my example. And now for the most important component, the economics written exam.So this is worth 50% of your overall mark, and it's composed of 20 multiple choice questions and 5 short answer questions. The good news, this is significantly easier than the exam for the Canadian Olympiad. So if you do manage to make it to the international stage, you will likely do well on the exam. And there's really no trick other than just studying, preparing rigorously for the exam.And what I would consider is using the core economics textbook that I mentioned to study. And the reason why I recommend this is because many graphs on the economics exam and many questions on the economics exam are taken straight from this textbook. So 我建议使用 core 的经济学课本，因为呢，许多笔试的问题还有图表呢是直接从这本书里面拿来的。So just repeating the core economics textbook is extremely useful.All right, so now I'm done talking about all of the tips and advice that I have from the International Economics Olympiad. And before I move on to talking about my experience with FBLA, I want to pass it back to Sunny 老师 to talk about their team for the International and Canadian Economics Olympiad.
谢谢 Angelina， 非常刚才给了我们非常多很详细的真实的就是说从各方面吧，这个真实的体验是大家都有什么样的就是说这个竞赛是怎么样的，题目是怎么样的，然后团队是怎么样负责的，提前准备的这个 template 都给我们列好了，还有哪些网上的资源等等，可以说是非常详细的一个关于 IEO 就是加拿大和国际 IEO 的一个非常详细的这个一手经验的一个介绍。我现在呢就是请Angelina 呢稍微休息一下，然后呢我们来看一下根据我们的这个日程，那我们接下来今天呢也是给我们这个团队进行一个预热。我这个屏幕还要把它稍微调一下啊，好。然后我们就是说呢，加高在线我们也是每年都是组队来参加的。前面2年呢，我们是组了 FBLA 的队伍。 这个是我们第一支队伍，是在2020年组建的。那么参加了2021年的 FBLA 这个商赛，我们当时是有30名学生在我们团队里面，曾经有上百个学生可能是跟我们注册报名，但是我们最后挑选了30个学生，然后这个呢是我们2021年，也就是去年组建的，今年2月刚刚参加过这个 FBLA 这个竞赛的。这个团队呢也是有非常多的这个学生自己组织的活动，有一些 meeting 给大家一些分享。我现在呢就是简单的说一下，因为很多家长非常关心我的孩子怎么参加这个商赛，因为确实像 Angelina 说的，今天我们来参加的，我刚才看了一下，可能比较多的呢仍然是10年级、11年级的学生。你们呢现在来接入到这个活动当中呢，是最好的一个时间，可以先参加一次，然后呢第2年你们就可以起到非常关键的一个作用。比如说我们刚刚介绍的去年和前年的 FBLA， 那我们就有前年参加 FBLA 作为一个普通的这个参赛队员的学生，那么在去年我们的 Executive Team 里面呢就做了比较重要的一个这个团队的这个就是说管理成员的这个角色。那我们去年的这个团队的 President，他在前年的时候呢也是这个 Secretary， 然后他2年呢都取得了这个非常好的成绩，应该是在加拿大的 CNLC， 可能是在 Economics。都是这个第1名这样的一个好成绩，所以本身的能力是非常强的，就是说我们的学生个人的能力本身是非常强的。那么团队呢也给了这个参赛的队员呢更多的一些锻炼的机会。刚才呢可能大家从 Angelina 介绍的呢可能知道，参加像这个 IEO 呢是要有团队的， FBLA 呢你可以，它是分不同的这个项目的，有的项目你是可以个人参赛的，有些项目呢是要有小团队的。但是呢即使你去选择 FBLA 个人参赛的团队，你加入到一个团队里面并且做这个 Executive Team 的 member 的话呢是非常有帮助的。首先呢你会有共同的这个就是说同学或者是伙伴，刚才 Angelina 也说她在这个活动当中跟自己的伙伴，她有非常多的这个经验和这个取得了很大的进步。那么你有这个 team member， 你和你一起的伙伴，这个很重要。另外呢大家知道我们参加这些竞赛呢会对我们在大学申请的时候呢，有很多大学会要求我们有这个额外的这个就是说这个额外的文书方面的要求。那么如果你参加了这个竞赛，并且你是在这个组织的团队里面有一个角色的话，你可以把你这个角色你是做了一个 president， 你还是做了一个其他方面，比如说是个 trainer， 你去帮助大家其他的团队成员去培训他们怎么样参加这个竞赛，或者你是一个 marketing 的这个 person， 你去推广咱们这个团队，还有就是有很多的这个不同的角色。那么你如果参与到一个具体的角色里面，第一对你的能力是一个锻炼，第二呢你可以把这些经验写下来，在你去申请不同大学要交这个额外的这个补充文书的时候呢，这个就是非常有用的。所以这是我们希望大家能够组队去参加，因为你会有同学跟你一起来参与共同的这样一个活动，然后也会对你的有提升，对你的背景也有提升。那么大家再体会一下，就是说我们很多人就会问我说你这个具体的要求是什么？等一下在这个问答环节呢，我也会针对大家具体的提问来回答。但是大家现在先体会一下，我们要参加的呢是一个商业竞赛，不是数学竞赛。我知道今天来参与的也有不少是家长。家长呢，以前我们在这个组成了这个商赛的团队之后，我们每年会建一个商赛团队的小群，微信小群。在小群里我们会呼吁家长出群，然后请学生进来。因为什么呢？因为是学生去参赛，并不是家长。然后呢还有就是我们家长呢会经常要求，就是说你要给我们培训啊， 你们要怎么样？其实呢不是这样的，我们是参加商业竞赛，尤其 FBLA 它是 Future Business Leader， 那你是一个未来的商业领袖，你不可能，你参加这个竞赛不可能每一步都是让别人来指点你，让你在像参加数学竞赛、参加别的竞赛，老师告诉你做什么，你去做什么，那你就不是一个未来商业领袖。所以我们的这个就是说，大家可以看到我们的这个团队呢，实际上它是学生自己组织的。我们在这个 FBLA 去年、前年的这个 FBLA 都是由学生，我们会有这个学生我们会有选拔出来的这种 president， 然后 co-president， 我们有 secretary， 我们有这个不同的职位，比如说你是做 trainer， 你是 marketing， 你是这个 recruiting， 你是什么，每个人有自己的职责。那你的职责，你去怎么样做事情，你是要自己来想好你这一块，你再来应聘这个地方。如果你说你等着我来分配的话，这个就失去了你进入到我们团队的一个意义。然后呢，同学们，大家可以看到我刚才给大家分享的这个画面，同学们那些这些会议啊，都是同学们自己组织的。那一个 trainer 会说啊，我们现在因为有不同的团队，可能参加 FBLA， 一个是参加这个团队，一个参加那个团队，那你们是怎么组织的？你们是从哪去得到一些这个学习的资料？然后我们是怎么样大家一起去报名参加什么什么？这些呢都是学生自己来组织，学生自己 training 学生自己的。那我们起到什么作用呢？我们第一是帮助学生组成这个团队，第二呢，我们是个啦啦队员，我们给大家摇旗呐喊，给大家助威。第三呢，我们是给大家做后勤部长的。那去年和前年的团队，如果你们说老师我需要把这个东西宣传好，我会不遗余力在我们的这个所有的合作伙伴的各个渠道，我们会去宣传。老师我会需要这方面，比如说有一个老师给我们培训，我们也有资深的老师请进来，比如说大家熟悉的傅燕老师，一直是在我们的2个团队里面做我们的这个团队里的这个就是助阵的这个指导，他也是这个DICA 的评委啊等等 FBLA 的评委。所以我们如果在这个团队里需要什么资源的时候，比如说我们需要一些资金，我们需要一些什么样的资源，告诉我们，我是后勤部长，我会来帮你拿到，但是我不会去指点你来做什么，你来做什么，每一个人做什么，因为我们这是商业竞赛，所以大家先要知道这是这样一个组织形式。然后呢，在这个进到我们现在的这个 Executive Team 呢，仍然是有空位的。等一下我会说具体有哪些。那么进到这个 Executive Team 里面呢，我们不需要考核，但是你需要首先有这个奉献的精神。你进到这个 Team 里面来，不是为了我吩咐你做什么，而是你要为其他的同学做什么。因为你为其他的同学做出了奉献，那么你会获得义工的时数，同时这是你尽量的施展你的才华的一个机会。然后也正因为你施展了才华，你得到了锻炼和提升，你在申请大学的时候才会有很多东西写进你的文书里面。然后呢，还有就是今年我们增加的就是你竞赛取得的成绩，我们会有这个现金的奖励，另外有这个就是一个官方的这种表彰的活动，所以大家要这个方面呢是我们也是今年新增加进来的。等一下，在这个问答环节呢，我会继续来根据大家提问的这个就是怎么招收这个团队的成员呀，把这个问题呢再详细的给解答。那我现在仍然把时间还给 Angelina， 让她来进行下一部分关于 FBLA， 谢谢。
好的，谢谢 Sunny 老师，我先把我的screen share 一下。All right, so first I will be starting off with just describing what exactly FBLA is and what the competition looks like and reasons to join. And then after that, I will be going through my own experience and any resources and tips for preparing for the competition. So as you guys all know, FBLA Canada, we are the largest student business organization in the world with over 250,000 members. So FBLA 呢是世界上最大的学生商业组织，有超过25万名成员。So the competition works like this. First, there's a national level, which is the Canadian National Leadership Conference. And then there's the international level called the National Leadership Conference. And the top 3 finalists in Canada for each competitive event are going to advance to the finals in the United States. So 加拿大的前3名可以参加美国的决赛。So just describing a little bit about what my experience was like, I joined FBLA Canada in grade 10 after learning about them by chance through a student volunteer fair. I was already looking for more business-oriented extracurricular activities after realizing that I really did like my time as a DECA member. And I've competed in FBLA for 2 years, where I won first place in Canada in both global business and banking and financial systems. So currently I'm a national officer for FBLA Canada. So instead of focusing on competing, I help host the Canadian National Leadership Conference, which just took place in February. So a little bit more about the format of FBLA competition. So FBLA Canada offers 13 different competitive events, which are separated into 3 major categories. So FBLA 呢提供13种不同的竞赛，分为3类。The first type is the objective test, 就是考卷的这种的。So this is a 100-question multiple choice exam, and you're given 60 minutes to complete it. Competitors have to compete individually. So there are these events under objective test that you can see on the screen right now. And then there's also the second type of event, which is collaborative objective test and role play. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's collaborative, so we can work in a group of up to 3 members. And there are 2 parts. The first part is the objective test, and then the second part is actually a presentation component. Now, the presentation, it's based on a business problem or situation. So you and the judge, you will both play a certain role in the business industry. So for example, you may be an employee who's explaining a business policy to the judge who's acting as a customer. Or you may be a marketing specialist and you're pitching an idea for a marketing campaign to your supervisor. So on the day of the competition, you will have 20 minutes to read over and prepare for the case, and then you will have 7 minutes to present your findings to the judge. This is actually the type of event that I competed in for both years, and I would highly recommend it just because you get the balance of learning both business theory and practicing your public speaking skills. And then lastly, there's also the business plan category. So this is kind of the outlier. This is the only event in its category. So for this, you have multiple months to come up with an idea for a business and then create the business proposal. Then you will present your idea for the business to a panel of judges in 7 minutes. Note that this is also a team event, so you can compete in teams of 1 to 3 people. Now, which event you ultimately decide to choose, this is based on your individual preferences and your individual strengths. So for example, individuals who are extremely good at research and writing should consider the business plan category. Individuals who are very good at study and memorization should consider objective test. And then collaborative objective test and role play is kind of a mix of the 2 things of both presentation and just studying and memorization. 我个人认为呢 FBLA 是一个非常值得加入的组织。I do think that there are many reasons to join FBLA, and these are some of the main things that I gained from joining the organization. So the very first and I think most important thing is strengthening communication skills. So 加强沟通的能力。This is what I think the best part about FBLA is, because the presentations force you to think on the spot. You have to communicate your ideas under a 7-minute time frame, and you have to practice articulating your thoughts in a concise but still persuasive manner. Also, like what Sunny 老师 has said, it's considered very favorably by top US universities. It can give you an edge in university admissions processes, especially if you have some sort of leadership position in FBLA Canada. Third, it's very easy to explore specific fields in business through a real-world perspective through FBLA, because as we know, there are 13 different competitive events. It covers everything from accounting to sports and entertainment management. 因为 FBLA 有13个不同的项目，从会计到体育和娱乐管理的比赛，所以呢有非常多的 flexibility. So whether you're passionate about business or you don't know anything about business, but you're interested in learning more, joining FBLA can provide you with that avenue. And also what I think is really cool about FBLA is that it's not only a great learning experience, it can also be exciting and fun. I actually personally met a lot of my closest friends by competing in FBLA and joining the National Trainers Council. And lastly, FBLA has a wide variety of leadership positions available. So FBLA 呢适合对领导能力感兴趣的学生，因为它有各种各样的领导职位可供选择。So for example, there's the National Trainers Council if you're interested in teaching students and helping students succeed. I participated in this council in grade 11 and it was a really rewarding experience. There's also the National Advisory Council. If you're interested in spearheading new FBLA initiatives and you're a very creative individual. And then there's also the national officer positions if you're interested in a very high leadership position where you're leading the entirety of FBLA Canada. So competing in FBLA offers up the potential of all of these leadership positions. So hopefully you do understand FBLA, what FBLA is a little bit better now. So now I'll move on to some recommendations for excelling in the competition. So first and foremost, National Trainers Council creates a wealth of resources that can be found at fbla.ca. So there are articles and there are example roleplay videos for every competitive event. These are all made by past FBLA winners, so you can rest assured that they're all trustworthy resources. 在 fbla.ca 上面可以找到培训的文章，还有视频，合适用于每场比赛的，这些都是非常好的学习资源。Second of all, there's also a Discord server for FBLA members. So I've linked the Discord into the slideshow, so you can just search that up right now or take a picture. So I believe this has currently over 1,000 FBLA members in the server. I personally just use the server to clarify any questions or concerns I have about competition, and there are always very helpful and friendly individuals there who are happy to answer your questions. And third, this kind of relates back to my second point. Don't be afraid to talk to or interview successful FBLA members in your category. 不要害羞与你项目中成功的 FBLA 成员交谈或者采访他们。Because in grade 11, I was looking through the Discord channel and I saw that one of the members in the channel placed first at internationals in my event, which is banking and financial systems. So what I decided to do was reach out to him and I interviewed about his experience with preparing for and competing in the competitive event. I learned a lot from the interview. So for example, I learned about the specific resources that I can use on Quizlet, and I also gained a lot of confidence myself that helped me succeed in the competition. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out to other individuals and connect with them. You both have something to learn from each other. With general tips out of the way, I now want to move on to more specific tips for the presentation or role play. So 转移到更具体的演讲的建议。So just like for the IEO, I would recommend using some form of structured studying resource, such as Khan Academy or textbooks. You can take Khan Academy's economics or finance course. I think that is really helpful. Or you can even just go to your school library and ask for a textbook on the topic of your competitive event. So for example, in grade 10, I just borrowed a textbook on international business from my school's library. I know, like, studying based on a textbook sounds very boring, but what it's extremely helpful for is providing that in-depth understanding of the topic. This is far better than just reading short articles or memorizing answers to test questions, because if you only do that, you have several pieces of unconnected information, and it's very hard to actually find the connections between different concepts. You need to find the connections between different concepts when you're in a role play situation. In a role play, it's not just about regurgitating information, it's about actually innovating based on what you know, and you are only able to develop that deep sort of understanding by using a long-term study resource. All right, and while the right studying method that I talked about before is important, what's equally important, if not more important, is finding the right team to prepare with you. So 必须要找到合适的团队或者合适的 partner. So what happened in grade 10 was that I partnered with a close friend for the competition, but unfortunately, she wasn't willing to put in as much effort for FBLA, so it was very difficult for me to coordinate studying sessions with her. And it was so frustrating to watch competition day loom closer and closer, and my partner would make excuses as to why she couldn't practice on a certain day every single time. So moving forwards in grade 11, I learned from this mistake, and I worked with someone else who shared my mindset about preparing thoroughly for the competition, and it was a far better experience in terms of practicing and preparing for the competition. And the moral of the story is that you can be amazing friends with someone, but you wouldn't be suitable academic partners at the same time. If you want to do well in FBLA, you should find someone who has similar studying habits as you, as well as a strong work ethic. So in Mandarin, 你不一定跟好朋友也是好的 FBLA 的队友。所以呢，如果你想在比赛中取得好的成绩，试着找一个和你有相似学习习惯的人。Another tangent that I want to briefly mention is to ask for feedback from mentors. So whether, for example, that's your FBLA president, or maybe even the National Trainers Council. So National Trainers Council, they host an event before the national conference every year. So in this event, you do a role play presentation live, and then the national trainers will judge your role play, give you a score, and also give you advice on the strengths and weaknesses of your presentation. Learning from feedback is crucial for growth for presentations. Something else that I think is incredibly important is that when you're studying, it's not enough to simply memorize terms or memorize statistics. You need to apply these terms in a real-world context in FBLA presentations. Now, in order to do so effectively, I strongly suggest keeping up with business and world news. So 学习时呢，仅仅记住单词是不够的，你还是要在 FBLA 演示的真实环境中应用这些术语。所以呢，我建议经常阅读商业还有世界的新闻。So what I think is very good about this is it helps you set yourself apart in role plays by going above and beyond the theoretical when you touch upon tangible points. So one example is if you had a role play about investment decisions. So you're an investment advisor and someone's asking you, what exactly should I invest in? What should I not invest in? In this presentation, you may want to explain how, for example, Russia's invasion of Ukraine means that commodity prices right now are incredibly volatile, which makes them a high-risk and undesirable investment instrument. So in order to keep up with business and economic news, I would suggest credible sources. So for example, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg Finance, and The Economist, these are all really good sources for keeping up with the news. Now I want to talk about an equally important aspect of FBLA competition, which is the objective test. So 我想谈谈 FBLA 的笔试的这种的。So to practice for the objective test, this should be a no-brainer. The best way to practice for the objective test is to do objective tests. This is because FBLA reuses 10 to 20% of test questions every year, so doing past contest papers is extremely helpful. 每年的 FBLA 都会重复使用10%到20%的试题，所以呢，做以前的考卷是很有帮助的。So how exactly do you find these past contest papers? Well, you can find resources in the Discord server that I mentioned before, and also a quick Google search should give you many practice tests that you can use as well. And when you're marking these tests, you want to make sure that if you get a question wrong, you don't just think, oh, that sucks, and then you move on. Instead, try to explain to yourself, why did I get this question wrong? And then log that question into a document or spreadsheet. So currently, I have a spreadsheet of all the questions that I've gotten wrong before, followed by an explanation of why the answer choice is wrong and what the correct answer choice should be. And I usually review the spreadsheet or document the day before the actual competition to make sure that I don't repeat the same mistake again. I do know, however, that unfortunately, there are only around 4 to 5 FBLA contest papers available online. So if you really want to go above and beyond with studying, you can also consider going onto Quizlet. So go on Quizlet and just search FBLA and then your competitive event name. By doing so, you should be able to find a lot of flashcards that give you the key terms and the key questions for your competitive event. If you want the extra study resource, it's there and it's very helpful. All right, so now that I'm done talking about the main specific advice for studying for FBLA competition, I want to move on to talk about some general studying tips for both IEO and FBLA Canada, because both of these are highly rigorous competitions where you do need strong studying habits in order to do well. So 我现在呢将讨论在准备 FBLA 还有经济奥赛时对我有用的一些学习技巧。So I know that first of all in high school, like a lot of students think it's cool or it's edgy to procrastinate until the last minute and then maybe pull an all-nighter and then study the entire day. And I used to think this way too back in grade 9 and 10. However, while you might get away with this in day school if you're just working on an easy project, for highly competitive competitions like FBLA, like the IEO, having good studying habits is crucial. Because having study habits that are steady rather than obsessive, these allow you to retain information better. You need that good night's rest, exercise, breaks in order to retain information. So what I would recommend is developing a detailed studying plan and more importantly, consistently sticking to that detailed studying plan. So this is an example of a sample calendar you can use for FBLA. So for example, you can do one objective test every week and then also practice the role plays on Wednesdays with your partner. Having this rigorous schedule is incredibly important. Another thing that I would recommend is goal setting and visualizing the end destination, because that's a very beneficial source of motivation when you're actually going through the competition. You want to be able to visualize the end goal as a motivation factor when you're studying for FBLA. That's how you don't get tired or you don't get bored while you are studying. And what I would actually do to hold myself accountable is tell my friends about my goals and put these goals into writing. For a period of time, I actually made my goals for FBLA. So for example, get first place in Canada for my competitive event on the lock screen for my phone for a while to remind myself, by no means do you have to do this, but just remember to keep your goals at the top of your mind so that when you're studying, you're looking forward to that end destination. You can see yourself there, and that makes you more excited about the studying process, which I do know can get a little bit boring at times. I also do want to emphasize that everyone has their unique studying style, so there's no one size fits all. You should find the study method that works best for you. But what worked best for me is just dividing my big tasks into smaller subtasks, because this just makes the tasks seem easier to do rather than more intimidating and overwhelming. So when I was studying on the weekends, what I would do is just use all my concentration and focus to work on one subtask, take a break, and then work on another subtask. So for example, I would do a role play with my partner, and then I would take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then I would do a practice exam. And this type of like breaks separated by subtasks just helps me retain my concentration and remember things better. I know that something else that worked really, really well for one of my FBLA friends is just using something called the Pomodoro Technique. So what this involves is doing work for 25 minutes and then taking 5 to 10 minute breaks and then repeating this process until you are happy with what you have achieved. 就是工作25分钟，然后休息5到10分钟。Why this is beneficial is because there is a body of evidence supporting the Pomodoro technique for increased focus and concentration. So I personally don't follow this, but because I know it works well for many other FBLA members, you can certainly try this out in your free time. And as always, remember to eliminate distractions like phone, games, or social media, and do take frequent breaks rather than studying all at once to improve your concentration. The last thing that I want to talk about for today is pursuing leadership positions for FBLA Canada. So whether you're applying to the position of national officer or to the position of national trainer or national advisor, there will always be a written application component, and then there will be an interview component. When you're considering the written component and also the interview, there are two main questions that you have to know quite well. You have to know this by heart. First, what have you done? What have you accomplished in FBLA? And second, why have you done what you have done? I know that in the interview, I have interviewed national trainer candidates before, and a lot of them say things like, I am very passionate about FBLA, or I am very passionate about accounting. However, these buzzwords, they don't mean anything if you don't back that up with substantial experiences. So you should say something like, I am passionate about accounting because of XYZ, and then mention a specific experience you had with accounting or a specific reason you like it. Having tangible experiences, so for example, success at the Canadian National Leadership Conference at FBLA is also extremely important. So just backing up the theoretical buzzwords with tangible proof is what's incredibly important when you're going through both the written application and the interview. And last but not least, the most important thing is to be confident. Even if an interview question stumps you during the interview, as long as you seem confident when you are giving your answer, this still improves the overall impression that you give off. So I know that this is a cliche saying, but fake it till you make it. This is something that really works during interview situations. All right, so this concludes all of the tips and advice that I have for IEO and FBLA today. Thank you so much for Sunny 老师 just giving me the opportunity to speak today. I really did enjoy being able to talk to all of you. So I think now we can get started with the question and answer period. I do know that some parents did have questions about FBLA and IEO.
Angelina， 你有那个我们的老师已经就是在这个群里面已经有的提问，你有吗？我来分享一下屏幕先。
哦，好的，我现在没有在屏幕上面，所以如果你
好来看一下。现在是问答时间啊，那我还要换一个屏幕。这样，我先呢这个退出这个叫什么？我正在录像哈，那我们问答的部分呢，我就停止录像了。我现在先停止录像。